What's going on, everyone? Jason here again, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a simple Next.js website using the Star Wars API. And so we'll be using the Star Wars API to generate the different pages that we'll have in our website. And so the goal of this project is to just show you how to work with Next.js and its different features, like how to create pages, how to create routes, dynamic routes, also how to work with get static props and get static paths to statically generate pages in our Next.js website using the Star Wars API. And as you can see, the homepage just has a simple welcome to Next.js Star Wars with some lorem ipsum text. We have 3 different pages here, and let's go to, let's say, vehicles. And in this page, we'll have a list of the different vehicles, and this data is coming from the Star Wars API. And let's say we click on Sandcrawler. If we click on there, we'll have a dynamic route with an ID here. And for this route, we'll be getting data for this specific vehicle and generating it, or listing it on the page. And so if we go to planets, same thing. We have a route for planets. If we click on this one, we have a dynamic route for that specific planet that'll give us some data for that planet as well. And so, so that's the project that we'll be building. Hopefully you guys will learn more about Next.js and the data fetching strategies that it comes with. And so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we'll do is set up our Next.js project. And so in your terminal, you're going to want to do an npx and then create next app. And we'll call this Next Star Wars. Once that's installed, you can cd into your project. And then in here, in our project directory, we're going to add a few dependencies. And so we're going to add Tailwind CSS to our project. And so in their docs, it tells you how to add it into your next project. And so in here, we can just copy this npm install command for these packages. Once that's installed, you can then add this command, which is to create your configuration files for Tailwind. And then we'll paste that. Cool. And so what that command does is it creates a tailwind config.js file for you, and also a post css.config. And then we can go ahead and add this property here inside our tailwind config.js. And so let's open up our project. Inside our project directory, we'll go into tailwind.config. And then we can just copy that command or that property in here. There we go. Save that. Cool. All right. So we got all of our dependencies set up for now. And now we can go ahead and start building out the website. Now, the next thing we'll do is add this import of tailwind.css in our _app.js file. That way we have access to all of our styles. Let's go ahead and remove this. Save that. Cool. So the next thing we'll do now is in our directory. So now we're going to start building out the website and the different pages. And so inside our directory, we're going to create a folder. We'll call this components. And inside components, I'm going to add 2 files. This one will be called layout.js. And the next one will be called, nav.js. And so layout.js file will be our component that will wrap all of our pages. So it's going to wrap this here. So component here references all the different pages in our Next.js website. And so we're going to go ahead and use layout to wrap that. And in here, we're going to add different styles that we want across all of our pages. And so in layout, we'll go ahead and we'll import React from React. And we're going to import Nav from Nav. And so Nav hasn't been set up yet, so we'll be setting that one up shortly. Okay, so then under here. So here we'll do an export default function. Let's see. Okay, so we'll do an export default function, call it layout, and then we'll be making use of the children prop in here. And then in here we're going to return a div. In that div, we'll return the nav component. And then under that, we'll render out the children and save that. Okay, cool. And I had a little typo here. So layout.js looks good. Now the next thing we'll do is go into nav, and we can just copy what's in layout, paste it in here, remove that, and rename this to nav. We don't need our children anymore. And now we'll go ahead and start building out the Nav Header area. And so in here, we're going to add some utility classes from Tailwind CSS. And so in here, we'll go ahead and add, let's see, padding of on the y-axis. So we'll add 4 there. And then on the x-axis, we'll add a padding of 8. We want the background to be a gray color, so we'll do bg-gray-700. In the text that we want, the text color in that nav, we'll want it to be white. And then we're going to make sure this is a flex container. And then we'll justify this to be between. So now let's go ahead and add our, let's just add Star Wars API just so we can see how it's looking so far. And then let's add a div in here. And then we'll add 3 divs in there for the links. So this will be people. This will be planets and vehicles. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's go into our, so in our _app, we're going to add a return in there, and then we're going to make sure we import our layout from components, layout, and then layout will be wrapping our component in here. So now all of our pages should have access to the layout styles. And so let's go into index. Let's just remove all of this. We won't be needing it. Let's go ahead and start up our Next.js app. Do a yarn dev. Let's go to our project. Okay, so there's our nav, and it's looking a little bit better. We'll just need to adjust a few more things here. And so let's go back to our nav.js file. And for the Star Wars API logo there, we're going to adjust this. So for that, make the text a little large. So we'll add text XL. That's looking good. And then for these navigation links, I want these to be horizontally aligned. And so let's go ahead and add in this div wrapper of those links. We're going to add some classes, or actually just one class, which will be flex. And okay, now I just want to adjust the margins in here between them. And so let's go ahead and do a class name. And for all of these, I'm going to add ML, so margin left of 8. That's looking good. Let's see, I want to in here, I want to make sure these are aligned in the middle. And let me go back to the Tailwind website and do a align. Let's see, I think it's align content. And then we can do, I believe we can do content center. So let's copy that. Do a content center. Actually, it's not align content or content center. It's actually item center. So we'll do copy that. And then we'll paste that in there. And go back. And as you can see, it looks like it did move. So let's go back and remove that. As you can see, it did go up a little bit. So that looks like it's working properly. And I think that should be it for our nav. And yeah, so let's go ahead and actually create or set these up as links. And so in our file up here, we're going to import link from next link. And then in here, so in here, let's do a link. Paste that in there. And then for this route, we can just do an href equal to slash. So that'll go to our home route. And then we can just copy this and set the links up for our navigation links in there. So for people, we're going to create a route called people. So we'll do that a little bit later. And then let's just do that. This one will be planets. And this one will be vehicles. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And let's go back. Cool, so let's just create a route here real quick. And so I'm going to create a directory, call this people. Inside people, create an index.js file. And we can just copy what's in home. Remove that. Call this people. And remove this. Okay, so we have people there. Save that. And let's see. So now we can check if our route is working. And so if we go to people, click there. Cool. So our people page was created there. All right. So our links are working properly. If we go back to Star Wars, it looks like we're back on the homepage. All right, cool. So now let's just quickly finish up our homepage layout here. And basically we're just going to add a title and some text. And then from there, we'll start creating our other pages for planets and vehicles, and then set up some data fetching to get data from the API. So let's finish up this homepage here real quick. Now let's go ahead and build out the homepage. So in the homepage here, we're going to remove this import styles. We won't be needing it. And we can also remove this head and this import as well. And so then in here, we can remove this class name. And for this div, inside this div, we're going to add an H1. And we'll just do a welcome to, let's see, welcome to Next.js Star Wars website. And then we'll add some lorem ipsum text. And let's just copy this and paste it in here 3 more times. And let's style this H1 tag. So we'll add a class name. And for the styles, we can make the text bigger. So for that, we'll do a text-2XL. And we'll have a text center to center it. We'll do an my-6, so margin top and bottom for that of 6. And we'll give the font a font weight of, let's see, font semi-bold. And let's go back to our page and see how it looks. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and fix this styling here. So for that, we're going to go into, let's see, in the p tags, we're going to copy, or not copy, but we're going to add this class name on each one of these. And we're going to add a margin dash bottom of 5. And then to also, I want to make sure this is more centered. For that, we're going to go to the underscore app.js. And in here, we'll just add a div in there, and we're going to paste it in the div, paste the component inside that div. And then here, we'll just add a class name. And then in here, we're going to add a width, a w-5-6. And then we'll do an m-auto. So that way the width is 5/6 of the page, and we're going to center that in the middle as well. Let's go back. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we can go ahead and build out some of these other pages, the people, planets, and vehicles. So let's start with the people page. And so in here, what we're going to do is at the top, we'll import link from next link. We'll be making use of the link component there. And so then for this page, we're going to be fetching some data from the Star Wars API. So we're going to be grabbing all the different people in Star Wars. So we're going to grab that data from the API so that we can display it on our page. And so here we're going to make use of a function called getStaticProps. So we'll go ahead and export async function. getStaticProps, and it has a context parameter. And so then with this function getStaticProps, this function is going to run at build time. So what that means is when the page is getting built out to then be served up to the browser to be accessed, we're going to do our data fetching during that time. So that way, once our website is, live on the internet, all of the data that we need for our website has already been fetched, and we've already rendered out the pages that we need. So instead of the other way where we would go to our website and go to a certain page, instead of data fetching the data from that time and waiting for that to load, all of our data fetching and all of our pages are already ready to go. So that way our website's now really fast with all the data that we need. And so that's what we're going to do with this function. And so in here we can do a const res equal await, and we're going to make a fetch to the Star Wars API. So we'll do a https:// and it's swappy.dev/API/people. And then we're going to create another variable called data, and then we're going to do an await on the res.json for that. And then we can just add a conditional here. So if data is false, then we just want to return an object of not found to true. And then in here, we're going to do a return. So here is where we're going to pass the props to our component that we need. So we'll do a props, and then in here we'll pass, this will be an object, and we'll just pass the data that we get back. And that should be good to go. And so now inside our component, we're going to extract out that prop, extract out data, And then here we're going to, inside this div, we're going to add an h1. So the title of this, we'll call it people. And then inside, and to style this up, we can just do a, let's see, a class name. And I think, let's see, yeah, we'll just do a text dash center it, text dash XL, font semi-bold, margin top and bottom of 6, and that looks good. And so let's go ahead and save that and just see if we have any errors on our end. So we'll go to people, and okay, cool. So people is looking good. So now let's go ahead and render out the data that we get back. And so in here, we'll do a div. So we want to, this will be the container div for the different people. And this will have a flex, and then a flex wrap, justify center. And then in here, we'll go ahead and grab the data that we get back from the API, do a data.results. So all of our results will be inside this property from the data that we get back. So that'll be data.results, and we're going to map through it. And then we're going to do a people. Let's see. So we'll go ahead and, yeah, that's fine. So we'll do a people. And then we're going to do, in here, we're going to do a, let's see, const URL R. And we're going to do a people.url.split. And so basically what I want to do is I want to render out all the different people URLs into like a link. So let me show you what I get back from the API real quick, just so you can see it as an example. So if we go to the API, the data that we get back will be, so it'll be this whole object. So right now we're accessing results and we're getting this array of objects. And let's see. And so what we want to do then is we want to create a link to a specific, to this specific person. And there is a property here called URL. And it's kind of hard to see because it's white, but this URL is mapping to API/people/an ID number of 1. So basically we just want to grab this URL and create our own link for this specific API endpoint. And so what we're going to do then, if we go back, we're going to grab the people.url property. We're going to split that string on this slash. So what we want to do is we want to grab the actual ID of that specific person. And so if we go, and then we can create a variable, call it ID, and then we'll do URL R, which is the array. And then we'll do we're going to grab a specifically we're going to grab the last entry in that array that we just created. So we can just do a URL r.length -2. So that will give us the ID for the specific person that we're mapping over. And then we can now in here return our markup. And so then in here we'll do a div, class name, and we're going to do, let's see, so for this link we're going to make it kind of look like a button. So here we're going to add a margin on the left and right of 2, and then we'll do a margin bottom of 2, and then we'll do a background, so it'll be BG gray -700, and then padding on the y-axis, so top and bottom of 2 inside that div, and then padding on the x, so left and right will be 4. And then we're going to add a rounded MD, so that'll give it a border radius of, I'm not sure the exact value, but it'll have slightly rounded corners. and then we'll do a text dash white, and that should be good. And so in here, we're going to then add our link. So we'll do the make use of the link component. So we're going to create here, we're going to create our link that we generated, or we will generate. So we'll do an href, and then we'll do brackets, backticks, and this will be going to people slash $ brackets, and we're going to pass in that ID variable that we created. So the ID that we extracted from the API. And then in here, we'll go ahead and do a people.name. And I think that should be good. So we can go ahead and save it, and we can go back to our page, and there we go. So here is our all of our different links that we created. So each one of these will route to a specific page. So this one, as you can see down here in the corner, it routes to our people slash one route, and we still haven't created that route, that dynamic route, so we'll need to be creating it here shortly. So if I click on it, this page cannot be found. So we need to create this dynamic route for people slash the ID. And so let's go and do that. And so let's go ahead and, or actually let's go ahead and just generate all of these different pages and reuse this code. So we can copy this, go into pages, and then we'll create a, planets directory. Inside there, we'll create an index.js, copy that, paste it in there. And in here, we can just call this, let's call this planets. And then we can change this to planets. And let's change this as well. So we need to change this variable to planets. And I think that should be good. So we can, got to change that to planets as well. Save that and go back, route to planets. There we go. So so now we're getting data from the planets endpoint for that. And these are the different planets. And as you can see down here in the top bottom left, we'll see that there is another dynamic route that was created for those different IDs. And so we'll have to create those dynamic routes as well. So real quick, let's go ahead and create our last one. And we'll do a vehicles. And in vehicles, we're going to, create an index.js file. And we'll go ahead and copy that from planets, paste it, and then just change what we need to change. So we'll do, should be vehicles in there. And we can do vehicles, and then we'll change these to vehicles as well. And there we go. That's looking good. So let's save it, go back to vehicles. And these are the different vehicles that we're getting from the API. Cool. Okay, so now let's go ahead and build out the individual ID page. And so we're going to do it with people. So in people, oh man. So in people, we're going to create a dynamic route. So this will be in brackets ID.js. And so for people in here, we're also going to make use of the getStaticProps function. And we're also going to make use of the, of the getStaticPaths function. And so once we get to that point, I'll show you how it works. And so up here, we're going to import link again. And we're going to do actually, no, we don't need link. So we'll just go ahead and export function get static props context, and then down here export async function get static paths. And let me add a async in here. Okay, and so whenever we have a dynamic route like we do here with ID, and we're using get static props, we need to add the get static paths function, and this is so that at build time, when we're building out our pages and doing our data fetching, what this function will do is generate all the different routes that we're going to have in our website ahead of time. And so that is why we're making use of get static paths. So at build time, we're going to build out all the different routes, dynamic routes that we'll need. And in this function, what we're going to do is we're going to fetch from our API. We're going to get all the data that we need to generate all of our different routes. And then from there, we're going to export a params object, which is an array of IDs. And then in the get static props function, in this particular page, we're going to basically grab the ID that we need for this page to actually fetch the specific data that we need for that specific ID. So as I build this out, it'll probably make more sense. And so in get static props, what we'll do, or actually we'll start with get static paths. And so in here, we're going to fetch all of our data that we need to generate our pages and our routes. So we can do a res await fetch from the API. So we'll do : and then we'll do a swappy dot dev slash API slash people. And then again, we'll just do a data equal to await res.json. And now we're going to actually generate our paths from the data that we get back. And so in here, we're going to do a const paths equal to data dot results dot map, and we're going to do a let's just do post. So post, and so then we're getting all of those. Actually, let's just call this. This was called. So this is people. Let's just call this people. And so we're mapping through all the different people in the API that we get back and the data that we get back. And then we're going to do a const URL again, like we did before. We're going to do a people dot. Actually, let's just do the post so that way we don't have to do a lot of changing as we reuse this. So let's do post. And so we're going to do post.url, and then we're going to do a split, and we're going to split it on a slash, and then we're going to grab the ID equal to URL r. For that'll be the array. We're going to grab the last item, so we'll do a URL r dot length -2. And then we're going to return. So here is where we're going to return an array of all of our different paths. And so then we'll do a params, and in here we're going to pass in an object, and we're going to pass the IDs, and we're going to do an ID. So ID, what it is, it's basically an array of all the different potential IDs or paths that we're going to have. And so in here, what we're going to do is we're just going to return. So what this function will do is return an object, an array of objects, and each item will be a params property with the object of ID or a property of ID referencing the specific ID path. And so That's looking good. So then down here, we can just return for the getStaticPaths function. We're going to return a object, and we're going to return the paths array that we have here. And then we're going to also do a fallback of false. And for fallback, I believe what it means is if there is no route for whatever path you're trying to access, then we want to just send it to a 404 page. And so that's looking good. Okay. And so now that we have all our paths set up, and we can now go into the getStaticProps. So in getStaticProps, then we're going to, let's see, we're going to do a const ID equal to context.params.id. And so remember, when we're accessing the, let's go back here, like if we're accessing this specific page, context params.id, ID will be this ID number right there. So we want to grab that ID because we're going to use that ID to get the data that we need from the API. And so then we can do a res equal to await. Also real quick, so this is possible to doing the context.params.id because we have generated all of the dynamic routes, all of our static paths, I guess you can say, to be able to access this ID. Because if we didn't do this here, then doing whatever we're doing in here wouldn't work because we don't have our dynamic routes generated ahead of time. So that's why this is now possible. If not, you would get an error if you would have done this before doing the getStaticPaths. And so now we can go ahead and fetch the data for that specific ID. So we'll do just copy this. And then in people, we're going to, let's do backticks here. So we'll do, let's just remove that, backticks. And then in here, we can do a $, and then we'll do a ID, pass in the ID. So we're gonna get data for that particular ID, and we're gonna use this endpoint. And then we're gonna do a const data equal to await res.json. And now we can go ahead and return. So our component's going to have access to props, and it's going to have access to the data. And we can go ahead and save that. And I think that should be good. So we can now build out our component. So down here, we're going to do a export default function planets, and then we're going to extract out the data. And this will be a simple page. So we're just going to return a div, return an h1, and we can, let's just go back over here and just copy this since we're going to just reuse that. And here we can do a person, and then we can go ahead and do let's see, actually let's do brackets in there, and then we'll do backticks, and in here we'll add person, do a $, brackets, and we'll do data.name to reference that particular person for that route. And then in here we're going to do a p tag, and then we'll do a span, so inside this span we're going to add a class name of let's see, font dash semi-bold. So we're going to bold this slightly. In here we're just going to do the name, and then let's just copy this a few times. And so for the name, we're going to add the actual name of this planet. So we can do data.name. And then in here, we're going to do let's do height for this particular one. And then in here, we're going to do, let's see, data.height. And this one will be mass. And in here, let's do data.mass. Let's add some space. Okay, so I think that's good. So let's save it, go back and see what we got. Let's see, let's go back to the vehicles page. Or actually, this is going to be on planets. So if we go to planets, actually, it wasn't on planets, it was on people. So if we go to people, go to Luke Skywalker, and let's see, cannot read property map of undefined. And okay, so had a slight typo here. So this, let's see, so results should be results. Save that. Go back to people, go to this one, Luke Skywalker, and let's see if we get back. Okay, cool. So here is our data. And so person, Luke Skywalker. So we're going to this route and with this ID. And now we're making use of, we're using this ID to fetch the data that we need from the API to grab the specific properties for that person. Cool. And so yeah, that's looking good. So now we can, let's see. So yeah, so now we can basically just reuse this again. And so let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So in planets, we're going to add a dynamic route ID.js. And we just need to change a few things. So this will be planets. And that should be good. Change this to planets, change that to planet. And for the data here, this will be, so instead of height, we'll do climate because that's the data that we get from this particular endpoint. And then we'll do terrain. And then we can do climate in there, and then we can pass terrain. Let's go ahead and save it. And let's go back, go to planets. And let's go to this one, to tune. And there is the data. So we get arid, desert. Let's go back to another one. Let's go to this one. And okay, so cool. So it looks like it's working. And so it may seem a little bit slow as we're navigating through these different pages. And so the reason for that is we're going, in order to actually see how it would work in production, what we're going to do at the end is we're going to export a production build. And then once we do that and run our project, you'll see that it's actually like pretty fast. Basically, it's a static website with HTML pages. And so we'll show you here that show that to you here shortly. And so let's go to, let's go ahead and copy this then and go to the index for vehicles. Or actually, we're going to create another dynamic route there. We'll do an ID.js. Copy that, change this to vehicles. And for this one, we're going to change, let's see. So instead of climate terrain, we're going to do, I believe it's a model for this API endpoint. And manufacturer, so manufacturer. And then we can do model manufacturer. And let's just change this to vehicles. And then change that to vehicle as well. And that should be good. Let's save it. And let's go to vehicles. And let's click on this one, the Skyhopper. Let's see, so name, model. So I believe that should be good. So let's just click on another one. Okay, yep, so looks like it's working. Awesome, so now let's go ahead for the final thing is just export our bundle. And now we can really see how fast it is. And so let's go in here, and what we're going to do then is, let's see, so let's go to our package.json. So in our package.json, you can see we can run this build command. So that'll set up the build for us. So we'll do a yarn build. And once that build is done running, as you can see, there is some messages telling you all the different pages that it created, and it'll actually tell you the kind of what type of pages it's building. So there's static, and then there's statically generated. So cool. So now we can actually do a, let's see, so it should be start. So we'll do a yarn start for that. And now we can go back to our project, and let's just, okay, so we're on our home page. And if we go to people, okay, and if we go to this particular route, as you can see, it's pretty fast. There isn't no, the pages doesn't like slow down or anything to load. It's just pretty instant, just as if it were a static website with just HTML pages. So that's pretty quick, pretty fast. To go to planets, indoor, and yep, do a refresh. Yeah, so if we do a refresh, everything is really quick. So cool. So that is the project. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all enjoyed learning more about Next.js and its different static site generation features, and also how to create different dynamic routes. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day.